Welcome everybody. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about this guy in New York City who has been caught not once, not twice, but now, just breaking minutes before I started filming this, a third time for running illegal migrant shelters, and the media is painting him as some kind of charitable hero, even though he's taking $300 per person in these shelters. And by the way, there is one specific one where there's 74 people, the second one had around 50 people, and I believe this third one is still in and around 50 people as well. So this guy's making a killing housing migrants in dangerous conditions in the basement of his properties, and now in this third shelter in the basement of a property that he doesn't even own. It's an abandoned library, and for some reason the media is treating him like he's this good Samaritan, and for some reason he's also not getting arrested for this, which I find to be incredibly interesting. Now we're going to get into this, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who signed up over on actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
And thank you to the podcast listeners, Spotify, Apple, and Google's podcasting platform.
Developing right now, inspectors have discovered dozens of people living inside a building in Queens.
So first things first, right off the bat, I gotta bring it up because I know you guys out there in the audience will definitely bring it up. But Bianca from my local Fox affiliate in that leather dress, very nice. Respect. I support it. I am in favor of it. But that being said, this story is absolutely chaotic, ridiculous, and absurd. We have a situation where 74 migrants were found being housed in the basement of a furniture store. They have hot plates, they have space heaters, they are in fact storing electric bikes in there, so it's an absolute fire hazard, and we have a bunch of people pretending like this guy who is behind all this is some charitable human being who is helping ameliorate the migrant crisis.
Some cell phone video from that furniture store owner who shows what these conditions look like in that cellar. You can see dozens of people in these beds appearing as if they're waking up. Neither the Department of Buildings nor the FDNY are saying who was living in these tight quarters.
So we see the cell phone video right here of these people. They call it a cellar because if you guys don't know, the difference between a cellar and a basement under New York law is that a basement technically has two entrances. It's actually majority or at least 50% above ground. None of these are true in this particular instance, not to mention the fact that they are in a furniture store, so the bathroom facilities are insufficient for the customer base that would likely be in a furniture store, let alone the 74 people that are sleeping in here in this poorly ventilated, no natural light having kind of location. Now, to be clear, this guy that they're praising in the media kind of and acting like he's a charitable figure was not doing this out of the kindness of his own heart, even though he's trying to pretend that he was, and for some reason the local media is pretending along with him. He was doing this for about $300 per person per month.
He said his reason is simple: to help them. He says he's prepared to face the consequences. In the long run, he hopes this will push the city to do more.
We need change. We're not going to let our people out there sleeping in the streets. It's wrong.
Yet for some reason, the local news is going along parroting that particular narrative. They're showing all these ideal quotes of this individual saying, look, the city's got to do something. I'm not going to let these people sleep on the streets. I'm going to fight back, open up my doors to these people for the low cost of $300 a night in order to sleep in this basement that's poorly ventilated with all these different fire hazards because I'm such a good guy. Now, for those of you who are not very good at math, like you didn't do well in your schooling and whatnot, I just want to give you some numbers on what this guy is pulling in from just this furniture store, shelter, if you want to call it that, from these migrants. So when you multiply $300 times these 74 people that were staying here, that is an income of $22,200 a month. $22,200 a month is what he happened to be pulling in for sheltering these people, wink wink, out of the kindness of his own heart. And again, that is just at this one location, which has various other hazards related to it that I want to get into because you guys might not know New York as well as I do, but in Queens in particular, as particularly in this area, these basements are prone to flooding if there are severe storms. In fact, we had a storm maybe a couple of years ago where the majority of of people who died from said storm in the city of New York, died in Queens, died in basement apartments in Queens for this very same reason. Yet this guy has 70 plus people in this basement, no ventilation, no second exit or anything like that, with space heaters and all these other things attached with it, no real running water, no real escape route, and he is being praised by the local news, given a platform to argue that he's doing this out of the kindness of his own heart. But the thing is, we know for a fact that's not the case. You should have known it just based on this alone, just based on this $22,000 number, but it's about to get significantly worse because he had another group of migrants in another property that he owned, which was in the Bronx, and this should tell you a lot about this particular story.
Ibu Sar defending himself after the city shut down 2 makeshift shelters under his name. He admits to housing migrants for $300 each a month, while some are suggesting his practices are exploitive and officials are calling them dangerous. He's sharing his perspective.
I'm not exploiting anybody. Like I said before in the past, we are helping ourselves because they're not helping us. I mean, putting the guys out there in the streets, spending the night in the streets, especially in this cold weather, is more dangerous than, what we're doing right now.
So yeah, they give this guy a platform to speak about how, oh, he's not doing anything wrong, and honestly, he's doing it out of the kindness of his own heart, and really, putting these people out on the streets is significantly more dangerous than what he's doing. But my question to follow up with that maybe the local news should have followed up with, is it though? Is it more dangerous to have these people on the streets rather than the obvious fire hazard that you're setting up in this basement? Like, I know that these people are largely Senegalese Africans that migrated to the United States of America. They broke our asylum laws. They're committing fraud in order to be here. But is this really the way that we want to treat them? Pack them like sardines into the basement of a furniture store without adequate plumbing and whatnot, with all these different fire hazards? And is this really the guy that we want to highlight as a hero in this situation? And more importantly, because I guess I have to bring this up, if this were a white person housing people in the basement of their furniture store for $300 a pop, making him, by the way, $22,000 a month just based on this location, would the media be covering it in the same way? Or would the media be pointing out how horrible this is and how white people are exploiting Africans? But there you have this guy deciding that he's going to exploit them, deciding that he's going to take advantage of the system. And by the way, it's not like these people have jobs or anything. They're getting subsidized by the New York City taxpayer, so he's just raking in those tax dollars, even though there are alternative shelters for a lot of these people. But yeah, this is what's going on right now, and it's about to get worse because a day after this makeshift shelter was discovered, another one was discovered.
Nous, on va bien ici. Okay. He said he don't like it here. He don't like the place, but he don't have no choice.
Through a translator, one of the migrants described what it was like living in an illegal makeshift shelter in the Bronx. This is video from inside of what appears to be a former cell phone store. The FDNY and building inspectors found 34 beds on the first floor and 11 beds in the cellar, all tightly packed together.
So look, I'm not somebody who's like a detective or anything. I never went to detective school. I never claimed that I was great at detectoring. But here's the thing. Yeah, you should definitely be checking all of this guy's properties because he's raking it in, making a ton of money off of these different makeshift shelters. Obviously, these Senegalese immigrants are willing to accept whatever, including this particular offer. So it makes sense to look into this. But the fact of the matter is, this was not discovered by a follow-up investigation or anything of the sort. Neighbors in this particular area decided that they were going to call in a tip to the FDNY because they saw these people moving in and out of this area. And again, this is also an insanely dangerous situation.
Inspectors on scene spotted extension cords, e-bikes, space heaters, and hot plates inside of the facility. The migrants also paid rent.
How much were you paying? 300.
A vacate order was issued and the city provided buses to relocate the men to shelters. This marking the second day in a row migrants have been found housed in dangerous conditions in New York City without a permit. The owner of the space is Ibu Sar, the same person whose furniture store was raided in Queens Tuesday for the exact same thing.
Again, just think about that. You have basements with no ventilation. They're technically classified as cellars. You have people in there with hot plates and all these other things, and they're storing e-bikes in there, which have those those batteries that are prone to combust into flames, and all of these people could be burned up in an instant. And yet this station, Fox, my local affiliate, is pretending like this guy is a good guy and he's compassionate and he cares so hard about these migrants, so hard that he happens to be making $300 a month off of each of them. And what's crazy about this is that every single one of these people per person has paid $300 to this individual. $22,200 in the first shelter. Let us not forget that number. But he claimed to the media that that was just a voluntary donation that they submitted to him in order to thank him for those services. Well, wouldn't you know it? He's collecting the same amount of money from these people from this New York Bronx shelter, this makeshift shelter under a store that he also owns.
SAR said this in Queens on Tuesday.
Get on their feet. So that was the intention.
They've been charging them too much money, but still, help them out so the people can find a place to live. They can't be in the street. It's no good out here.
Neighbors were empathetic towards the migrants, understanding that housing is a challenge as the city continues to grapple with the migrant crisis.
Honestly, it's not fair. That's how I'm looking at it. Y'all not doing that with the other migrants that's attacking people. They're not attacking nobody. They're making a living.
And in a separate interview yesterday, the mayor was asked about this. He said he wasn't so sure if the owner was trying to benefit from this, adding that those who exploit innocent people must be held accountable. That's the latest here in the Bronx. Dan, we'll send things back inside.
Other questions, Lisette? Thank you very much.
So if you guys are counting at home, and by the way, that counting assumes that it's one bed per person, which is something you should not assume, this would be, just based on the beds alone, $13,500 a month. Add that to the $22,200 and you end up with the price of $35,700.
SAR says African migrants are coming to him for help. How are they finding you? Through word of mouth? You have personal...
Through word of mouth, because, they all talk, they all, group chats, they all communicate, and everybody want to come to me, but I cannot take all of them.
Now again, I will stress, we don't know the exact number of migrants that were in this cell phone store, but based on the fact that they were renting out to more people than there were beds in the other furniture store, it would seem to me that that number is a conservative estimate, but still, we're talking about a significant amount of money, over $35,000 a month, and this guy is pretending like, oh, he's so kind, he's so sweet, he's doing it out of the kindness of their own heart, and the media is platforming this. They're defending this guy.
The city was tipped off by complaints about the hazards that come with cramming too many people in small non-residential spaces. FDNY and the Department of Building stepped in earlier this week in Queens. Officials evacuated a furniture store SAR was using to house people. This video shows their sleeping situation. Then yesterday, this space being used in the Bronx was shut down for the same reason.
We became aware of those two locations because there were complaints that were filed. We went in and found that there were individuals living in unsafe conditions. And as we would with any New Yorker that we find living in an unsafe condition, we immediately vacated those locations and referred those individuals to additional resources.
So like I said, except worse than what I said, you had extension cords running power from the street into there because, he can't be expected to pay for his own power. Space heaters, this is all insanely tightly packed. And again, it is a disaster waiting to happen. People eventually going to get burned up in this guy's shelters. But the thing is, it doesn't stop there because these are the two properties as of right now that he owns that happens to have all of these Senegalese migrants. But we just discovered, again, right before I started filming this particular video, that we have another property that has migrants being stored in it, but this property isn't even owned by this individual. It's actually an abandoned, chained up former public library in the Bronx, and this guy is charging money for that. But remember, he's not exploiting anybody, he's doing it out of the kindness of his own heart. From the New York Post, a Queens furniture store owner busted this week for running 2 illegal boarding shelters for West African migrants, including one housing dozens in cramped, hazardous basement conditions, also operated a third pop-up hostel in an abandoned library, the Post has learned. But Ibu Sar, 47, was busted for that too, but this time it was back in January when the cops found the wannabe franchisor inside the chained up old Fordham Library in the Bronx. He told officers they were walking into our migrant shelter, court documents state. He told them, I run it according to the criminal complaint. I help these people because they have nowhere to go. Shelters won't accept us. I have no proof of residency from the mayor. I have business up the street. This is where I live. Cops arrested him and charged him with 2 counts of trespassing, but the charges, which he must answer for, don't seem to go up into effect until April 16th. Now, he himself is a Senegalese immigrant who argued that he was just taking matters into his own hands when the city wasn't stepping up. So let's be clear about this. This guy is a Senegalese immigrant. Now, he appears to have come here in the legal way because he has legal businesses in the city of New York. He's doing well financially, and he is exploiting his own people. Now, when you have people coming into the city of New York from a foreign country, defrauding the asylum system, and then you are taking money, extracting that from them in the form of $300 a month, in the form of tens of thousands of dollars that he's profiting off of this. We used to have a word for this. This used to be called human trafficking. This used to be called potentially even a modern day slavery situation, because we're not exactly sure how they're making this money or anything like that. And the people who are there have reportedly said that they hate it in these locations. It's cramped and it's all the kinds of crazy and whatnot. And yet he's only being charged with trespassing. Even though he's profiting immensely off of this, that appears to be the only thing that he's facing. And again, he is being praised wildly for this. They're supporting him in this, despite the fact that he's been busted 3 times, once on public property, 2 times on his own private property, and obviously business wasn't booming in his cell phone store or his furniture store because this is infinitely more profitable for him, and who knows how many other locations this guy is operating. This guy is not a kind-hearted, charitable person. He's actually an organized criminal taking advantage of these people who shouldn't even be in this country, who are afraid to report to the system what's going on, and he's exploiting them in its pure and most simplest form. He's also endangering their lives. If these people would have burned up in all the various fire hazards that he set up for him, are those of you who are defending this guy in the local news and on the left wing as somebody who's responding to a bad set of circumstances gonna defend him in that situation? Because that's absurd and insane. Again, it's just allowed to happen in the city of New York. There's no real consequences for it. He's been busted repeatedly. That original library bust was apparently back in January. Nobody bothered to investigate him any further. These were all discovered due to various complaints from neighbors due to the quality of life issues associated with these migrants and the potential fire hazards. And yet, again, free pass, not being arrested. Totally exploitative behavior. Again, if this was a white person and not a fellow Senegalese immigrant, people would be freaking out, but they're just kind of ignoring it, pretending like it's no big deal. And I guess we'll just have to bust up 20 more of his shelters and hope that none of them catch fire, hope that nobody gets killed. Also, I'm curious how he's reporting this income, if it's taxable income and whatnot. Maybe they'll bust him up on that, but who knows? They might paint him out as a hero for pocketing all that cash. Just listen to some of the quotes from the people that were actually living there. And again, remember that the media is kind of defending this guy as responding to a bad situation. Quote, "We had no bathroom. We had to go to Planet Fitness to take a shower," said Say, who arrived in the US from Senegal 6 months ago and had first stayed with his own sister. The father of 4 then had to live on the streets until a friend told him about SARS. He works as a delivery man for an app, but business has been slow. He gave us food only 1 meal per day at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he said of SAR. So these migrants, who again were living on the streets, they do like Uber and DoorDash for almost no money. They have to scrape together $300 a month in order to stay here. And what he provides to them is a little bit of food, 1 meal a day for all of these different people, while he's raking in the tens of thousands of dollars. This is what's going on. This is what our country has come to. This is the consequences of open borders and sanctuary city promises that you cannot live up to, even when you blow out the budget like New York City is. But the fact that they're painting this guy as a hero is a bridge too far for me. The fact that they're praising him and saying, hey, maybe what he was doing is a-okay, maybe it's all right, when these people could have burned up and died, is absurd and ridiculous in every possible way. And yes, I've been saying it throughout the course of this video. If he was not a Senegalese immigrant himself, people would be freaking out about this. If this was a white guy, if this was an Italian, Polish, whatever you want to say, but not a black person, people would be like, wow, how could this monster do that? But here, it's considered okay, it's considered no problem, despite the fact that it's absolutely insane. And by the way, it's insane that he hasn't been arrested for this. Let's be clear about that. I mean, again, 3 different times he's been busted for doing the same exact scam, making tens of thousands of dollars, and all he got were some trespassing charges related to the library fund. But you know what? That's just my thoughts related to this whole situation. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think this guy should be in jail, or do you actually think he's a hero like some in the media are painting him out to be? If you like this video, then show him by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about this madness out of New York City. Till next time.